Now, you know what really shits me about these? The fact that more of you didn't buy them.
I know what you're thinking, this is a Volkswagen and I'm going to tear it to shreds, but the truth is, these things have definitely improved with age.
Bloody hell. It goes. Okay, when brand new, the Volkswagen Passat, it surely has to be one of the most underrated cars on the market. What about when they're not new? What goes wrong with these? How are they aging? What do they like to live with and drive? Most importantly, should you ever consider buying one? We're going to answer all of those questions and so many more, but first of all, let's cover the bare basics. The 8th generation Passat comes in 2 iterations, the B8 and the updated B8.5. You can choose between the lifted but not quite an SUV all-track wagons or the more traditional wagon and sedan body styles. All Aussie delivered Passats feature a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, either drinking petrol or diesel, and what they're actually called will depend on what's powering it. For the specifics, hit pause now. Also, the trim levels and their availability, well, that will depend on what's going on under the bonnet as well. Ready? Hit pause now. And internationally, there were even more variants and engines to choose from. But even here in Australia, with such a wide range, the pricing can also follow suit. Pricing varies from $10,000 to up to $70,000. So this then puts it up against other cars like the Mazda 6, the Ford Mondeo, and the Subaru Outback or Liberty. Not to mention its very own siblings, the Volkswagen Arteon and the Skoda Superb. Actually, you know what? It is very bloody similar to a Skoda Superb. But look, no matter what car you're looking at buying, if you're looking at financing it, make sure you hit the driver link down there. Driver exists to get you the very best possible finance package from loads of different lenders. The entire process is free, it's super easy to do, there are no hidden fees, and applying will have no impact on your credit score. Now, you know what really shits me about these? The fact that more of you didn't buy them. See, Volkswagen can't seem to keep up with the demand for SUVs like the Tiguan, but to a point that they've actually discontinued the Passat. It's this weird fascination people have with SUVs that are killing cars like this, and that's tragic. But you know what I do love about it? It's the way it looks. Obviously, it's a little bit larger than its little brother Golf, but especially in this R-Line spec, the design language just works. I feel like the slightly larger size, it just makes all the design language work a treat. But you know what's even cooler than this? It's this in wagon form, because obviously fast wagons are the coolest cars in the world. Now, as expected, the updated B8.5, it did receive some fresh design cues, but really, you'd have to be a hardcore fan to spot the difference. That means that Volkswagen pretty much nailed the design right from the start. Why update and change too much when you just get it right? And another thing I love about the look of these is that our New South Wales Police Force now use these as patrol cars. So in white, in 206 TSI form, it looks a bit like an unmarked car. However, unfortunately, it's not all good news for the exterior because there are some issues. The first big common complaint from owners is that the drainage holes around the sunroof can block really easily. If you don't clean it out, water builds up, it finds its way into the cabin, generally eats some electronics. It's a total nightmare. And then there are reports from owners about random electronic gremlins, things like the boot latches not working, lighting issues, power windows playing up. Not common as such, but yeah, they can happen. Now, quite a few owners complain about the quality of the plastics around the actual door trims. Apparently these can come loose or oxidize and discolor and can even get a bit rattly and squeaky. If they get rattly and squeaky, that will send you insane. Now, this isn't just a Passat exclusive thing. Loads of Volkswagens do this. The cable for the bonnet release, it can stretch and even break. The issue here is that, well, number one, it's a Volkswagen. You're definitely going to want to access the engine at some point. Also, the replacement cable as an OEM part is stupidly expensive. Also, according to the owners, because of the angle, the beautiful angle of the bonnet, it's very susceptible to stone chips. Now, common complaints and issues inside. Let's start with annoying noises besides the sound of my voice. So there doesn't seem to be one specific issue or complaint here. There's a whole bunch of different ones. There's owners that have complained that on the wagons, the tailgate can rattle and carry on. A, B, and C pillars can rattle and creak. In this car, and this is a kind of a common complaint, when the car goes over a different angle change, the sunroof, it can creak and carry on. There are rattles coming from inside the dashboard. There was one owner in particular that said he's getting immense amount of rattles from the gauge cluster, but only on really, really hot days. Strange. Many owners have complained that the USB input, when it's just here, it's annoying that it faces up as it just fills up with gunk and it's really gross to clean. Actually, just on the owners, thank you so much to all the Passat owners groups that helped us research this video. And Adam, mate, thank you so much for lending us your car. You're a legend. Actually, if you want to be a legend like Adam and want to lend us a cool car to film, let us know in the comments, or better yet, message us on the socials. Now, apparently the older 8-inch screens, they're starting to have some issues with dead pixels or even entirely entire lines of dead pixels. Also, on some of the newer and higher spec models, the ones where the climate control doesn't have any buttons, it's just like a little touch screen, many owners have complained that this is dangerous, and I totally agree. There's something about tactile buttons when it comes to HVAC controls. Having screens, you've got to take your eyes off the road, try and find the button, press it correctly, that's just dangerous. But then there are issues that are not just bloody annoying, but I think are dangerous, like the electronic parking brake not disengaging. That means the car has to get towed away to get repaired. That's ridiculous. Now this one will depend on your particular physique, but some owners have complained that, especially in the sports seats, the side bolsters are either too narrow, too firm, or they sit up far too high, and it might feel that when you're getting in and out of the car, the seat is trying to examine you from behind, although some people might enjoy that. Also, according to many owners, the interior trim might not be as resilient as you're hoping, especially when it comes to the driver and passenger door handles. Apparently these can wear quite badly. Now, obviously the level of wear and tear and resilience will vary depending on the car you're looking at. In this example, this is pushing 8 years old, nearly 160,000 Ks, and the wear and tear in here is very, very good. The leather, still nice and supple. There's a few little scratches here and there, but overall, really good. Even in, this really shits me, this gloss piano black plastic in high traffic areas, even this isn't too scratched up. In some of these it can be, but being gloss black plastic, it does attract fingerprints like you wouldn't believe. But I do have a complaint with this interior, and this is not just in this car, it's all Volkswagen models. Look, Volkswagen, I know you're probably saving millions of dollars by not putting plastic bits on this section of trim here, but I just feel like it cheapens the entire interior, the fact that you've got all this beautiful material everywhere, but then you've got just metal there. Just put a bit of plastic on it. But look, besides that, honestly, what a fantastic interior. Typical for Volkswagen, the ergonomics are absolutely spot on, loads of adjustability. They just get driving positions so right, because this is about perfect. Even Practicality is so intelligent. Excellent sized door bins that are felt lined to keep your cold drinks nice and warm. Pretty good sized glove box there. You've got a little storage cubby hole here with a power adapter, 2 cup holders, storage here, storage in here, storage under there. There's nothing under the seats in particular, nothing down there, but spot for your sunglasses as well. Now, I should mention, even though the overall design doesn't change a whole lot between pre and post update, the levels of material, they do increase the higher up the food chain you go. Although in saying that, even though the 8 to 8.5 update was quite substantial and Volkswagen improved the Passat all the way through the life cycle, some of the earlier base spec models, interior wise, they're starting to feel their age now. Also, a few owners claim that the smaller 8-inch screen is less susceptible to fingerprints than the larger post-update 9.2-inch screen. Actually, just on those features, obviously the update enhanced all the tech and features, but besides all the predictable stuff like a decent sound system, multi-zone climate control and power everything, all Aussie-delivered Passats feature Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, front and rear parking sensors and a rear view camera. Plus, the vast majority on the used market will feature leather upholstery. However, move up the food chain to a later or higher spec model and you can get yourself a premium Harman Kardon sound system, digital instrument cluster, larger infotainment screen, massage and heated front seats, 360-degree camera. The list of features just goes on and on. Also, and Volkswagen are going to hate me saying this, plenty of Passats, they do have features that just need to be recoded via the software, plus heaps of equipment can be retrofitted between models. So rather than spending more money on a more recent higher spec model, maybe you could just buy yourself a lower spec older model and get the features turned on with the software. Also, all Passats come standard with windscreen wipers, although not just Volkswagen, but all manufacturers, they seem to charge a ridiculous amount of money for wiper blades. Not to mention, trying to work out which wiper blades to buy at your local parts store can be a nightmare because there's thousands of them. So instead, to avoid all of that annoyance, hit the Wiper Tech link down there to get 15% off and free express shipping on some of the easiest to order, easiest to fit and best wiping wiper blades we've ever used. Did you know, like a lot of Volkswagen models, the name Passat actually comes from a type of wind, Passatwind, which is the German name for trade wind. And speaking of successful and powerful products of trading, I'm exactly 10 centimeters taller than Warren Buffett. This is in my driving position, and this car might just take it out for the best backseat accommodation that we've felt in a car of this type, because loads of knee room, heaps of foot room, the seats are so comfortable. Good glass house, there's no panoramic roof here, but it doesn't matter. Like, it is quite dark, it feels a little bit claustrophobic, but more like you're being hugged than you're being trapped. I mean, even as far as wear and tear goes, this car gets used on a daily basis. The back seats get a workout, but you'd never know. The leather's fantastic. There's no marks on the door cards. Everything's holding up really well. Then as far as practicality and features, you've got your own air vents and climate control buttons there. You've got map pockets, excellent sized door bins, which you don't have to break your wrist to get to them. They're right there, easy to get to. Pull down armrest with 2.5 cup holders. That means there's a spot for small pretentious coffees like the ones I drink, like a double macchiato. Also, you can access the boot via the little trapdoor. Now, interestingly, in the boot, in wagon form, these have one of the largest cargo spaces of any car in its class. With the seats up, it's a whopping 650 litres. Now, that's actually more cargo space than a Volkswagen Tiguan. So before any of you start saying, oh, I need to get an SUV for practicality, bullshit. Get a wagon version of one of these instead. Way more practical. And then for the sedan, I mean, look at this. Like, there is so much space back here. Plus, you can pop the rear seats down just with this. So they fold forward. You could almost go camping in here. Camping in a sedan. That's lovely. Now, as far as the safety equipment goes, look, like the features, there is loads. So I'm going to do this next voiceover as fast as I possibly can. At the very least, you can expect 9 airbags, ABS, adaptive cruise control with automated emergency braking, lane departure and blind zone warnings, ISOFIX child seat mounts, traction and stability control, and a hill holder. Later in high-spec models come with Volkswagen's full suite of advanced safety features like adaptive cruise control, autonomous emergency braking and pedestrian protection, lane keeping assist, rear cross, traffic alert, blind spot assist, front and rear parking sensors, and 360-degree camera, and more. Now, if you do need all the specific details in the ultimate used Passat buyer's guide, go to ReDriven.com and check out the completely free cheat sheet because it will answer all of your questions. Now, when it comes to common complaints about the driving experience, plenty of owners, they don't like the fact that the DSG is pretty clunky and confused at around town speeds, especially if, reverse parking, things like that. This is just inherently a dual clutch transmission thing. Plenty of manufacturers have an issue with this. The good news is when you are up to speed, it works flawlessly. Also, Volkswagen DSGs have a pretty terrible reputation when it comes to mechanical reliability. So there's always this annoying thought buzzing around your head like a mosquito that something like the DSG is going to have some mechanical tantrum at any moment. Also, typical Volkswagen steering feel, or I should say the lack thereof, it's direct enough, but there's no, it's going to sound like I'm a wanker, but there's no nuance to the steering. It feels like you're driving Sega Rally in some dodgy old arcade. But besides those few things, honestly, it is all positives about this driving experience, especially considering this is a 206 TSI R-Line. I mean, it's quiet, it's refined, it's so comfortable, it feels genuinely premium in every possible way. But then with this performance-tuned suspension and this power plant, when you sink that right foot, bloody hell, it goes. I mean, it's just so sensible all the time, but with this perfect amount of aggression, it's a bit like finding out that your accountant plays bass in a metal band. However, the most satisfying thing about driving around in a white 206 TSI R-Line Passat is that plenty of people out there think you're an unmarked police car. Forget blowing people off the road with your amazing acceleration and cornering abilities. This thing just beats them at a deep psychological level, and trust me, that is just, it's so satisfying. But besides how wonderful these things are to drive, what about these DSG concerns? Apparently the water pumps and thermostats just fail all the time. Are there any truth to these rumours? Well, I can't tell you, I'm afraid, because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim certainly is.
Let's just start with the diesels first. We are actually seeing less of the DPF and EGR complications, but keep in mind, these still are relatively new. We are still seeing some injector seal issues. We are still seeing some oil leak issues and some engine breather complications too. And of course, we are still seeing some cooling system issues. Look, aside from the probably more common cooling system issues, these things don't really have any more complications than any other late model diesel. They do have a timing belt, which is due every 105,000 Ks or 7 years. Now, it's not recommended you go over the manufacturer's service intervals ever really, but on these, definitely don't. It's not so much the belt that fails, it quite often is one of the idler pulleys or the water pump, so definitely get that done when it's due. Look, I go into the petrol now, the good old EA 888. Look, these things do have a timing chain, not a timing belt, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have issues with it. They are known for timing chain tensioner and guide issues, so keep an eye out for that. You'll hear it rattling. Other issues these engines are known for is oil consumption, although that has gotten better with the later models, but it's still an issue. Less common are the ever-present ignition coil complications. That's pretty easy and cheap to fix relatively though. Now, the cooling system on these is typically fairly piss weak. The good old water pump and thermostat module, always a problem. These are failing at about 40,000 Ks in some cases, and in other cases maybe 60 or 70, but yeah, definitely, they just don't last. And because they are direct injected, they do suffer from a bit of inlet valve clogging and inlet port clogging. They do occasionally suffer some turbo complications. That is more common in poorly serviced items though. Now the DSGs in these, look, the early models did have a terrible reputation, but like everything in this model car, they are much improved over the older versions. And the Haldex system, that's the rear drive coupling, look, if you service it, you're typically not going to have any issues with it. But just keep in mind, a lot of dealerships just recommend that this is not a serviceable item. It is, and it's highly recommended you do it. I'm just going to loop back around to a problem with a diesel Passat we saw in the workshop recently. This was an all-track, and it had an issue with the AdBlue level sensor. Now, the owner of this particular car was on a budget, and they wanted to see if we could get a second-hand unit. You've got to replace the whole tank, you can't buy parts for it. Because it wasn't all-track, now in Australia, they are far less common than all the other Passat variants. We had huge problems trying to find a second-hand replacement setup. And in the end, it had to get a complete new, genuine pump housing assembly, and it cost a fortune. Now the problem here was the second-hand part in a slightly less common car. And this is often a problem in slightly less popular cars. Now I'm not suggesting everybody drives around in the same car for the sake of, quick and easy servicing. But it is a good reminder that if you are on a budget, it's a great idea to get something more common and somewhat popular.
So after all of that, should you buy one? Well, you know what? When it comes to the older and lower spec models, no, because for the same sort of money they're asking, you could also get yourself into a Mazda 6 in both sedan or wagon form. See, the Mazda 6 will match the Passat for all of the subjective stuff, while very possibly being more reliable and cheaper to maintain. Then when it comes to the all-road versions, well, a Subaru Outback needs to be considered as an alternative, although they certainly aren't without their gremlins. CVT dramas, anyone? But when it comes to these 206 TSI R-Lines, there are very few other cars that can do what this thing can do. Obviously, they are far from perfect, and they do require absolute fastidious maintenance to hopefully mitigate any larger issues. But as long as you can find an example with a meticulous service history, and you've got a few $1,000s stashed away to pay for the water pump and the thermostat, and whatever other issues might arise, yeah, you should buy one, because when these are at their best, my God, they are an exceptionally good car. Although in saying that, still, you should probably just buy one of these instead. But question for you, if you weren't to buy that or this, what would you buy instead? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you next time. And you can get yourself a premium Humming.
And because they're direct injection, oh Jesus, give me that loop again.
However, move up the food chain to a later or higher spec model, and you can get yourself a premium Humming.